Very good morning. So we have done last time the basic things which we require to define the probability, and we have also seen the classical definition of the defining the probability of a certain event when some random experiment occurred. Okay, and we have also uh, try to see what are the problems in defining the probability by using frequency method. Okay, and now we are in the position of defining the that so-called modern axiomatic approach for defining the probability. Okay, so we have to conduct a random experiment. So you will write the all possible outcomes for from the random experiment, and that will constitute a space which we will call as a sample space, which we are going to denote it by omega. Okay, then for every subset of omega you are going to assign a probability function. Okay, so a probability is a set function P. So it's why said to be set function, because it is defined P from 2 to the power omega. If you are favorable about this, or if you are already aware about this notation, 2 to the power omega is nothing but the power set of omega, and it is one another notation, okay, for defining the set of all possible subsets of omega, and it defines a map from 2 to the power omega to the closed interval 0 to 1. Okay, so this is a set function satisfying the following three axioms. So three axioms we are going to define. Okay, they are known as, this is known as axiomatic approach for assigning the probability. Okay. So for any event, means we say that E is an event when it is a subset of the sample space. Okay, you take any subset of sample space, and then first axiom is defining the non-negativity. Okay, so whenever you are saying that E event occurred, okay, so it has some probability. Okay, so means, for example, you are rolling a die, okay, and you write down all the possible outcomes, and let's say E is the event set of all even numbers. Okay, means the face shows even number. So then you are going to have look at what is the probability of getting an even number when you are rolling a dice with 6 face. Okay, right, and then we will assume that all the face as equally likely are equally likely to occur. Okay, and then further we will investigate more things. So what we can say is, whenever you are assigning the probability for a certain subset or for certain event, it always be non-negative, greater than or equals to 0. Okay, right. Then if so, this is the second property. So the first property is non-negativity. The second property is known as countable infinite additivity. Okay, so countable because you are considering the collection of countable collection. Okay, so I hope you have done the calculus course, and there you must have encountered this word countable. What do you mean by a countable set? Okay, it has a 1-1 correspondence between with the set of natural number. Then you will say that the certain set is countable. Okay, so if you have a countable collection of mutually exclusive events, okay, so of mutually exclusive, so we have already defined what do you mean by mutually exclusive. Means you take any two pairs of this at any stage, EI and EJ, then EI intersection EJ is empty set, is a null set. Okay, for all I not equals to J. So you take any two distinct pair, and then if you take the perform the interaction, if this is equals to empty, then we say that these are mutually exclusive events. Okay, so right now, then if you take the form the union of the all this countable collection, and you know how to perform the union of certain countable collection of infinite set. Okay, in a similar manner, you will define the probability of union of EI. So if these EIs are mutually exclusive, okay, then this can be simply obtained. The probability of the whole union can be simply obtained by putting the summation of individual probabilities. Okay, so you assign you find out the probability for each event. Okay, and then you are going to you can certainly define the probability of the union of EIs. So for this, you can take the example of natural number. Okay, set of natural number. How will you define? So set of natural number is your sample space. Okay, and any event means like getting a natural number means like singleton set is also a event. So where EI is equals to I, where I belongs to any natural number. I is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay, and then you can also certainly show that union of these EIs will be whole set natural number itself. Okay, I is equals to 1 to infinity union EI can be shown as the whole set, this set of natural number. So this is not even mutually exclusive. We will say that mutually exhaustive events as well. Okay, means when we say that a set of events is exhaustive, then their union will form the full sample space. So if its union is full sample space, then we say that these are mutually exhaustive. And if they are also this pairwise, means like you take any two events, and if EI and EJ is are mutually exclusive, means EI and EJ is high, then you will say that mutually exclusive and exhaustive events. Okay, so right. So now what you will assign the probability of this event. Okay, so that's now you can define. Okay, so I will give you that here the assign probability of EI is equals to 1 by 2 to the power I. I will assign this for occurring an event I am just assigning the probability of EI is going to be getting an ith number, or you can ith natural number. Okay, that's going to be defined as 1 by 2 to the power I. And you can see this infinite series summation 1 by 2 to the power I is a geometric series with common ratio half and with first term half, and that sum up to 1. Okay, that you can prove. Okay, so this is why I have taken this 1 by 2 to the power I, because I know that these EIs are mutually exclusive and exhaustive. Okay, so in this way, if you have a countable space, so you can certainly assign the probabilities for every subset of sample space. Okay, so here the second property says that countable infinite additivity means if you have a collection of mutually exclusive events, then probability of their union is nothing but the summation of the individual their probabilities. Okay, right. Now third property what put here is probability of occurring the full sample space, means the set of all possible outcomes is certain. Okay, so the third property is probability of omega is equals to 1. That's a certainty. Okay, right. So these are the three properties which non-negativity, countable infinite additivity, and probability of omega is 1. Okay, here this you can define. So I have defined this function, right? This probability function from set of natural number or not set of natural number. I say this power set of natural number to close 0 1 by probability of EI individual. You can show that this is actually satisfies all the axioms. Okay, I have defined this is going to be this. Okay, for I belongs to natural number. So you can show that this is a probability function. Okay, why? Because this probability of set of natural, find out that is going to be 1. You can prove all these three axioms here. Okay, right. Now, what else more we have is that omega is also called the event space. Yes, fine. Sample space. So it also, because omega is also subset of, so it is also the event space. The second thing is the members of omega are called events. So that we are already aware about it. Further, a countable collection of events is said to be exhaustive if their union is the whole set. So exhaustive if union of ei, that I belongs to the sum index lambda, is whole sample space omega. You can, okay. So we say that a countable collection of event is said to be exhaustive if you have this follows. Okay, if you have union of EIs is whole sample space. If in addition you have, as just now mentioned only previously, if in addition you have EI and EJ is EI and EJ, if you take I not equals for I not equals to J, if you take any two pairs, if they are distinct or mutually exclusive, then this will say that these are mutually exclusive and exhaustive. Okay, right. Okay. Right. So now the very first question in, that has been answered. Is it possible to assign probabilities to all subsets of omega when omega is countable? So when you say omega is countable, means you will have a one-on-two correspondence between set of natural number and omega. Okay. So you will always be able to define, assign the probabilities in the same way what you have assigned for set of natural numbers. So see, so set of natural numbers has I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so you take any subset single, you can say P is a subset of omega. You don't know. Okay, so what you can do here is, okay, you can define, this is the, you can say, instead of this, what you can do is, okay, so when omega is countable, so you will always be able to find a map, okay, that is 1 1 or 1 1 on 2 correspondence to set of natural number. Whether you talk about omega, you will, for a given I, you will get a omega here. Okay, so simply you can each event, okay, something like you because omega is countable, so you can renumerate it into P1, P2, and so on. The events, all these events, you can enumerate it in a type of sequence, right? And probability of this any event, you have this P3, let's say, okay, that you can assign as 1 by 2 cube, or in general, probability of this Pi, okay, is can be assigned as 1 to the power. Okay, so whenever a set is countable, you know that you can always enumerate it in form of sequence. Okay, and then you can assign the similar fashion what you have assigned for the set of numbers, the probability function. So yes, it is the answer is yes, it is always possible to assign probabilities to all subsets of omega whenever omega is countable. Okay, now let's see one more question here. So in any probability space, okay, so sample space along with the probability function, we will say that that is probability space. Okay, so we have the following: P of probability of the whole sample space is 1. But whether probability of A is 1 implies A is a whole sample space or not. So that I wish to left as an exercise for you, because already this has been answered, okay, when we talk about the classical method. Okay, right. Okay, so I may wish to left here exercise that this answer is no. So this implies A equals to omega or not? No, it is not. It is not true that probability of certain event is equals to 1 may or may not imply the A or equals to omega. Okay, so that you try to investigate, and we will get it answer. You will get it answer from the previous lecture itself. Okay, right. So let's do one problem. Okay, here. So suppose that 5 cards are drawn at random without replacement from a deck of 52 cards. So assuming that, we are assuming that the outcomes are equally likely. Okay, find the probabilities for the following events. So you have drawn 5 at random and without replacement from a deck of 52 cards. Okay, so even is the event that each card is spade. So what should be the probability of even? So what are the number of possible outcomes is 52C5, right? Out of 52, you are going to choose 5 because order doesn't matter here, which is coming first or not. Okay, so here it is going to be 52C5. Okay, any 5, right, drawn at random. Now, each card is spade, means everything, means, so what are the number of favorable cases is, so how many spades are there out of 52 cards are 13. So out of 13, any 5 should come, these will be your favorable. So simple. Okay, now the next, let's say E2 is the event that at least one of the drawn card is spade. Okay, so there are 5 cards drawn. Okay, so there are 5 cards drawn. So what we will do with it? So there is one way is one card is a spade. So if you denote this, so one card is spade, one spade plus 4 others. So there are these. I think these are possibilities: 2 spade plus 3 others, and so on. All the possible pairs. That's also one way. Another way is I will just assume this complement. Okay, so what is the E2 complement? So if I what is the E2 complement is none of the drawn card is spade. The drawn card is spade. So this is the E2 complement. So I certainly can able to find out the what is the probability of E2 complement. That is equals to, now 52C5 is the number of exhaustive cases. Now none of the drawn card is spade. So how many are there which are not spade is 39. 39, choose 5. Now the answer is 2. We have to answer this, at least one of the drawn card is spade, but we have only considered none of the drawn card is spade. So what you will do now? So how they are related? So I can, this is, omega I can write, if omega is a full sample space, that you can write as E2 union E2 complement. Okay, so this will imply, now since E2 and E2 complement are mutually exclusive events. Okay, so probability of omega is equals to probability of E2 plus probability of E2 complement. So probability of omega whole sample space is 1. So probability of E2 is equals to 1 minus probability of E2 complement. So this gives you probability of E2 is equals to 1 minus probability of E2 complement. So that will give you the answer. Okay, so again, so you can go back and you can also work with the previous technique as well, that one card is spade plus 4 others, 2 cards spade, 3 others, and so on. There are possible, I think, 5 possible cases. So there will be, you will apply basic counting principle. Okay, sum rule and product rule. Okay, but you will get the same answer here. So 1 minus 39C5 by 52C5, whatever you will get for this, you will get the same answer. Okay, right. Now the next is E3, the event that among the drawn cards, 3 are kings and 2 are queens. Okay, so this is simple. So probability of E3 is equals to, so again, number of possible or exhaustive cases is 52C5. Okay, and there are 4 kings. Okay, so out of 4 you require 3, but this is simultaneous task, which is you are not stopping here. So you again, so rest 2 are queens. So out of 4, 2 is king. Now you apply the formula here and you find out the final answer. Now, so I hope you will be certainly able to answer for the finding the probability of this E4. So number of this exhaustive cases is still 52C5. Now 2 kings, 4C2, plus 2 queens, 4C2, 1 jack, 4C. Okay, right. So this will be the answer for this problem. Okay, right. So we have here, you have noted down one of the important property, that how this probability of E2 and E2 complements are related. Okay, right. Okay, so now the very next thing what we want to learn is conditional probability. Okay, so the conditional probability, so as the name itself is says that saying that the probability is now conditional, means for example, suppose you roll a pair of dice. Okay, so then if you write the sample space, what will be the sample space? Set of all possible pairs I comma j, such that I is equals to 1, 2, and so on 6, and j is also 1, 2, and so on 6. Okay, set of all possible pairs. So first this I will denote that when first dice, so what first die shows. Okay, and this will denote the second dice. Okay, the phase which is coming up. So there are possibly 36. I hope this is very simple to calculate how many possible number of pairs are there. So you can apply the basic counting principle, 6 into 6. Okay, that's going to be 36. So let's assume that each are equally likely. So let probability of getting this pair, any pair I comma j, is 1 by 36, equally likely outcomes. Okay, now suppose given, means let's say let the sum is 8. The sum is 8. Okay, let the sum is 8. So you can find out all the possible pairs. So let even is the sum is 8, and that the sum is, and you roll a dice. Okay, okay, let E1 is the event that the sum is 8. So you can certainly find out what are the favorable outcomes here. With 1, nothing is there. Okay, with 2, 2 comma 6. With 3, 3 comma 5. With 4, 4 comma 4. Then you have 5 comma 3. And you have 6 comma 2. So these are the possible 5 pairs are there. Okay, and what is the probability of this getting even is, so the probability of getting even is equals to, you have 5 possible pairs, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have, they are mutually exclusive events. So 2 comma 6 is also mutually exclusive to 3, 5. So the probability of even is equals to the sum of the probability of individual getting these pairs. So that is going to be 5 by 36. Okay, right. Now let us assume that F is the event. So given that E1 has occurred, so it is giving you additional, I'm giving you additional information that even has occurred, means when you roll a dice, the sum is 8. Okay, that is prior to known as. Find the probability. Find the probability that the first dice shows 3. Okay, so what you are expected to find is probability of the first dice. Sorry, the first dice shows 3 given. So this is the symbol that it's a given conditional. Okay, the given even has occurred. What should be? So in this scenario, it is already known, means even has occurred means that is a certain. Now your new sample space is this form. Okay, now what will be the probability of getting the first die is 3. So that's going to be, so this is only the pair, this certain space, so this they are equally likely to happen. So what should be the probability now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So out of 5, so one of them should become 1 by 5. The probability of getting first dice shows 3 is, when even has been occurred, is equals to 1 by 5. Okay, now, so now if you say this is the event, let's say this is the event E2. Okay, let's say this is the event E2. So what is the probability of E2? Suppose you don't know. So suppose you don't know what whether this even has occurred or not. So first dice shows 3. So that's going to be 1 by 36. Sorry. This is going to be first dice shows 3. So there are how many pairs of 3, 1, 3, 2, and so on. 3, 6. Okay. So this is going to be, so E2 is the event. We have 3 is starting with this. So 6 by 36. So that is 1 by 6. Okay. Now, what is the probability that E2 and even both occurred? Should be the probability that both should occur together. Means the first dice shows 3. Okay. The first dice shows 3 and the sum is 8. So this is how you will read. Okay. So the first dice shows 3 and the sum is 8. So that's going to be 1 by 36. Okay. Now if you see, so now the probability of this relative probability E2 and even both occurred, divide by probability of the even has occurred, is this relative probability. If you try to identify, that's to be 1 by 36 divide by 5 by 36. So that's going to be 1 by 5. So since this becomes a new sample space, right? Okay. So this is why. So this is a one. You can say this is one way to identify the condition, defining the conditional probability when even has occurred. Okay, right. So here is the definition. Okay, so the probability of A given B is equals to. So how will you read it? A, that this is A, means you are trying to identify the probability of the event A has occurred when B has already given that B has already occurred. Okay, so this is how you will read. That's equals to probability of A and B occurred together divided by the total probability by, means, or in other words, probability of occurring of the event B. So the very first thing from here, this rational function, okay, this is a rational, the numerator and denominator. So this will be only defined provided probability of the occurring of the event B is greater than 0. Okay, if it is equal to 0, it is not defined. If B has not occurred, okay, means probability of occurring B is 0. So in that case, this probability of occurring A, B has occurred is 0. You can define it simply that. Okay, right. So from here, you can certainly, the very first thing, so you can certainly prove that probability of A given B is greater than equals to 0, right? Because probability of numerator is greater than equals to 0 and probability of B is strictly greater than 0. That non-negativity. Secondly, you can also define that, you can also prove that probability of A1 union A2 given B is equals to probability of A1 given B plus probability of A2 given B whenever A1 and A2 are mutually exclusive events. And not only that, you can actually prove the countable infinite additivity for this conditional probability as well. And the third very important thing is the probability of the whole sample space, means sample space is B. Okay, the third important property of the probability function, that also is certain, because B, you know that given that B has occurred, so what is the probability that B has occurred is 1. So this conditional probability itself is a set function, which is also a probability function. It also satisfies all the axioms which the probability function is also satisfied. Right. Okay. Right. So let's do one more problem here. So let's take this example. So you have a bin contains 5 defective, 10 partially defective, and 25 acceptable transistors. Okay. Okay. So defective means they are not possible to use. You cannot use them. Partial defective means they will be used. They can be used, but it does not have any guarantee that how long it will work. Okay. And then 25 acceptable transistors means they are not defective, so they will go for long term. Okay, right. Now what is he saying is a transistor is chosen at random from the bin and put into use. Okay, right. So total are how many? 25 plus 10 plus 5. So total 40 transistors are there. Out of them, a transistor is chosen at random from the bin and put into use. Okay, so if it does not immediately fail, so it is given to you, if you read it carefully, if it does not immediately fail, what is the probability that it is accepted? Okay, given that does not immediately fail. So what is, assume that all are, means the choosing transistor, okay, is equally likely. Okay, right. So these are 1 by 40. Each transistor has the probability of 1 by 40 equally likely. Okay, so if it does not immediately fail, so given that, so even is the probability, the event that chosen transistor does not immediately fail. Okay, chosen transistor does not immediately fail. So what is the probability of even? So transistor does not immediately fail means it is not defective. It may be partially defective, it may be acceptable transistor. So 25 plus 10, that is 35. So out of 30, total 35 transistors, they are favorable one. Okay, and out of 40, so that is going to be 35 by 40. Okay, now what is the probability that it is acceptable? So let E2 is the event that the chosen transistor is acceptable. So what is the probability of E2 is? So acceptable transistors are 25 out of 40. So that is going to be 25 by 40. So what will be, so now we are going to answer the case now. So chosen transistor is acceptable when you know that it does not immediately fail. That is going to be probability of E2 and E1 divided by probability of E1. Now, how do you read this E2 and E1 together? Means chosen transistor is acceptable, okay, as well as it does not immediately fail, means acceptable as well as chosen transistor does not immediately fail, means the only possibility is acceptable transistors. There is no other. So 25, right? 25 out of 40. So that's going to be 25. That's happening both together is 25 by 40. That's nothing but the probability of chosen transistor is acceptable. Divide by probability of E1, that is probability of chosen transistor does not defective, okay, does not immediately fail. Then that is going to be 35 by 40. So that is going to be 25 by 35. So I have tried to model it in terms of conditional probability. You can also look at an alternate way. Means, see, the question is if it does not immediately fail. So certainly this 5 defective is not there. So certainly it is going to be come out from the 25 plus 10, 35. Okay, total 25 out of 35 transistors are exhaustive cases, and the favorable case is 25 acceptable transistors. So that is going to be 25 by 35. That is going to be the probability that it is acceptable. Okay, so instead of modeling into the conditional probability, you can answer in this way as well. Okay, right. Okay, now let's take one more question here. 6 cards are dealt at random without replacement from a deck of 52 cards. So find the probability of getting all cards of heart in a hand, given that there are at least 5 cards of heart in the hand. So 6 cards are dealt at random. Okay, find the probability of getting all cards of heart in hand, given that there are at least 5 cards of heart in the hand. So you can say that even is the event that at least 5 cards of heart in the hand, and E2 is the event that getting all cards of heart in a hand. So what you are interested in is probability of E2 given E1. Okay, you are interested in this. Okay, so for this case, so what is the probability of E1? So I just try to find out what is the probability of E1 is. So there are two cases, at least 5 cards means, so it will be 5 cards or 6 cards. So number of exhaustive cases is 52C6, right? Okay, so the first case is 52C6. So 5 cards are heart. So heart, how many are there? 13, right? Out of 13, 5 must come, and rest 1 is going to come from 13. But this is not only the possible case. So that's why there is some rule now. Okay, that's going to be number of exhaustive cases 52C6. Now, all of them are 6 cards. So at least means all of them are 6 cards the next case. So that's going to be 13C6. Okay, now what is the probability of E2? So probability of E2 is equals to getting all cards of heart in the hand. That is going to be 13C6 divided by 52C6. Now, what is the, so now you put down in the formula now, probability of E2 given E1 is equals to probability of E2 and E1 happen together divided by probability of E1. So probability of E1 is given to you. what is probability of E2 and E1? So getting all cards of heart in the hand and at least 5 cards of heart in the hand is same as probability of E2 only. Getting all cards of heart in the hand. Okay. So here there are two possible things, 5 cards or 6 cards. Or 6 cards. So only E2 is the possible. So that's going to be probability of E2 divided by probability of E1. Okay. Okay. So let's have one more problem here. So an urn contains 4 red and 6 black balls. 2 balls are drawn successively at random and without replacement from the urn. Find the probability that the first draw resulted in a red ball and the second draw resulted in a black ball. Okay. So how will you read this? Okay. So you have urn. Okay, so let's have this urn contain 4 red and 6 black balls. 4 red plus 6 black balls. So total 10 balls are there. Okay, so 2 balls are drawn successively at random and without replacement from the urn. So number of possible outcomes are 10C2. So our exhaustive cases are 10C2. Okay, right. Now find the probability that the first draw resulted in a red ball and the second draw resulted in a black ball. Okay. So now what I will say is E1 is the event that the first drawn ball is red. Okay, I know that. So I want to model it in terms of the condition probability because I want to relate it with that. You can still find out the other way as well. That's not a problem. So E1 is the event that the first drawn ball is red. So what is the probability of E1? Is going to be the first drawn ball is red. So out of 10C2, okay, so first drawn ball is red, so 4C1. Okay, now not that without replacement. So either second drawn ball is also red or second drawn ball is black. So there are two things. Okay, so what you can do is, so first case you can take the second drawn ball is also red. That is going to be the first case plus 10C2. Okay, plus 10C2 time first drawn ball is red into the second drawn ball is black. So that's going to be 6C1. Right? Okay, and let's say E2 is the event that the second drawn ball is black. Okay, so see here, not that you have two balls are drawn successively one by one at random and without replacement, not together. Okay, so this is not together. So we have to go step by step. Okay, right. So in this case, so what is our possibility is, so first drawn ball is red. That's going to be 4 out of 10. Okay, that has the equal probability, equilikely. So out of 4 by 10 into Then second drawn ball is also red. So now that is not replaced. So the second ball now is coming from 9 and first drawn ball is red. So sure only remaining is 3. Now plus. Similarly, for the first drawn ball is red. That's going to be 4 by 10 into that's going to be the second drawn ball is black. So that's going to be 6 by 9. So that's going to be in total is 4 by 10. The first drawn ball is red. That's going to be still 4 by 10. Now, what is the probability of E2 given E1? Is going to be probability of E2 and E1 divided by probability of E1. So the second drawn ball is black. Is going to be, so this, see, second drawn ball is black when and first drawn ball is red. So that's going to be given by this property, this part. So that's going to be 4 by 10 into 6 by 9 divide by probability of E1 is 4 by 10. So this will get cancelled. So you have 2 by 3. So see, the certainly first drawn ball is red. So that also you can look at back. Okay, another alternate way. So first drawn ball is red means one ball is gone. So now new one is 3 red plus 6 black. Now then you will draw the second ball, which is going to be black, means 6 out of 9. So that's only coming out here 2 by 3. Okay, right. Okay. Now the next result is very important, which is known as theorem of total probability. Okay, so let me write something here. Okay, let's first. So let this E1, E2, and so on be a countable collection of mutually exclusive events. Okay, that is union of EI is equals to mutually exclusive and exhaustive events. Okay, mutually exclusive and exhaustive events. So what do we mean by this? Both mutually exclusive and exhaustive events is that is union of I is equals to 1 to infinity is whole sample space omega, and you take any two pairs EI and EJ, that is going to be a null set for all I not equals to J. Okay, right. So this is the definition of mutually exclusive and exhaustive events that you can refer. Okay. Now let E is an event. Sorry. So let E be an event. Now I can write E as equals to E intersection with omega, full sample space. Okay, we are nothing worry about it, right? So that's equals to E intersection union of EIs. I is equals to 1 to infinity. So whole sample space omega, you have the EIs, this E1, E2, E and VA countable collection of mutually exclusive and exhaustive events. These EIs are such that. So I can write omega as union of EIs. Now use the distributive law of the set relation that you can write as union of I is equals to 1 to infinity E intersection with EI. Okay, this intersection with this infinite union is same as you take intersection with individual and then take the infinite union, that you can do easily. Okay, right. Now also that let's say BI is equals to E intersection EI. Okay, you have this collection I is equals to 1, 2, 3 and so on. So you can verify that it's very simple. BI and BJ is equals to phi for all I not equals to j. Because of EI and EJ is mutually exclusive, so therefore BI and BJ is also mutually exclusive. Hence, the countable infinite additivity. So that property I am recalling here, additivity, implies that probability of E is equals to probability of union of I is equals to 1 to n. So I just this E intersection with omega. So that's equals to probability of E intersection. So that probability of E is equals to probability of E intersection omega. That's equals to probability of E intersection with union of EI's. I is equals to 1 to infinity. Now this is equals to probability of union of I is equals to 1 to infinity E intersection EI. So that is equals to probability of union of BI's. I is equals to 1 to infinity. Now since if you prove that these are mutually exclusive, then countable infinite additivity implies that's equals to summation of I is equals to 1 to infinity probability of BI's. And what is this probability of BI is summation I equals to 1 to infinity probability of E and EI happen together. Now recall the conditional probability now. Okay, so now note that. So conditional probability, what was the conditional probability? Is probability of A given B is equals to probability of A and B divided by probability of B, provided probability of B is greater than 0. So this implies probability of E is equals to summation I is equals to 1 to infinity probability of this E intersection EI. So this is equals to, now this implies what? Probability of A and B is equals to probability of A given B into probability of B. So I'm going to use this relation here. So that will give you summation I is equals to 1 to infinity probability of E given EI into probability of EI. Okay, so this will be this gives you a theorem which is known as theorem on total probability. And how it will be used, that we are going to look at in the examples. Note that these EIs are the mutually exclusive and exhaustive events. Okay, they may be finitely many, they may be infinitely many. That is up to you, or maybe depends on the problem itself, that how many number of mutually exclusive and exhaustive events are required, case by case. Okay, so this is called the theorem on total probability. It says is as follows. So let this omega comma p be a probability space, and let EI be a countable collection of mutually exclusive and exhaustive events, such that probability of each EI is greater than 0. That is required because of the conditional probability is there. Okay. Then for any event E, we have the following relation. And that actually you can verify. Okay, just now you look at the example. Okay, you will see that. Okay, so let's see this example. So here you have been given with the two uns, okay, u1 and u2. So there are two uns, u1 and u2. Okay, so both contain some type of colors balls. Okay, some color balls are there. So u1 contains 4 white and 6 black balls. u2 contains 6 white and 4 black balls. Okay, right. Now a fair die is cast. A fair die is cast, and on u1 is selected if the upper face of dice shows 5 or 6 dots. Okay, so if you roll a dice, if it shows either 5 or 6 number of dots, then you will select the on u1. Otherwise, if it is going to be showing that 1, 2, 3, 4 dots, then you are going to select u2. Okay, and then what you will do is, if a ball is drawn at random from the selected urn, then find the probability that the drawn ball is 5. Okay, right. So let's look at now carefully. So you have two urns. One is u1, another is u2. Okay, so urn u1 contain 4 white, 6 black, and urn u2 contains 6 white and 4 black. Okay, and you are here and rolling a dice. So if it shows 5, 6, you will go here, and if it shows 1, 2, 3, 4, then you will go here and draw a ball at random. Okay, now so means like you have, so E1, let's say let E1 is the event that select R1, select U1, select the on U1, and E2 is the event that select the on U2. So only two possible cases, right? Two ones are given to you. You are going to roll a dice. Okay, if it shows 5 or 6 dots, you are going to select on U1. If it is going to show the dots 1, 2, 3, 4, you are going to select U2. Okay, so you will definitely able to tell what is the probability of selecting U1 and what is the probability of selecting E2. And they are only the possible things. Either you select U1 and select U2. So these E1 and E2 are mutually exhaustive and also exclusive. Why? Because both cannot take place at the same time. You cannot select both the urns. Okay, so they are mutually exclusive as well as mutually exhaustive. Okay, right. So what is the probability of E1 here? So select the urn U1 means when your dice shows up 5 or 6. So if you say so we are assuming that the dice is fair. So it is given that dice is pairs and the outcomes are equally likely. So what is the probability of E1 is 2 by 6. That is going to be 1 by 3. And probability of selecting on U2 probability of E2 is equals to 4 by 6. That is equals to 2 by 3. Now the next story will start now. Okay, so once you select the on U1, then once you select the on U2, then you are going to go for U1 or U2 to draw a ball at random. Okay, right. So now, okay, so let A1, okay, let A is the event that, okay, let A is the event that the drawn ball is white. A is the event that the drawn ball is white. So I am interested in finding probability of A. So how will you go for it is, means you are you are going to select the on U1 means probability of E1 into, in that case, what is the probability of drawn ball is white plus probability of selecting on U2 into probability of drawn ball is white, then E2 is on U2 is selected. Okay, so this is equals to, so probability of E1 is 1 by 3 into, so in the case of selecting on U1, what is the probability is 4 by 10 plus probability of E2 selecting on U2 is 2 by 3 into probability of A in case of you are selecting U2 is drawn ball is white is 6 by 10. So that is equals to 16 by 30 and that is equals to 8 by 50. So you can read it like this. This is simultaneous task again. This is if you go in without knowing what is happening here, the theorem of total probability or something else. What you can do is you are here and you are rolling a dice. You simply go if 5, 6, then U1. If 1, 2, 3, 4, you are going to U2. So you are going to this with probability 1 by 3. You are going to this with probability 2 by 3 by tree diagram, or you can say. And getting drawn ball is white is 6 by 10 and drawn ball is white is 4 by 10. So this is simultaneous task. So 1 by 3 into 4 by 10 plus 2 by 3 into 6 by 10. So here total probability is occurring. Okay, so you can look it in this way as well. Okay, so there may be other ways as well. So you can just find out. Okay. Now the very important theorem of probability, okay, that known as Bayes theorem. Okay, means suppose in the previous question, what do we want is we want to know it is given that the drawn ball is white. Then I am asking you the question that what is the probability that it is coming from on U1? Okay, it's an inverse problem. It's kind of inverse problem. Okay, means it is given that the drawn ball is white. What is the probability that it came from on U1 or it came from on U2? Okay, the reverse way. Okay, so means like what I'm interested in, suppose I'm interested in probability of E1 when A has occurred. Okay, means E1 given A. Or I may interested in probability of E2 occurring E2 or selecting U2, E2 selecting the on U2 when the event A has occurred. Okay, right. So that will be answered by the Bayes theorem. The statement is almost similar. There is nothing new. Okay, so let this omega p be a probability space and let EI be a countable collection of mutually exclusive and exhaustive events such that each individual probability is strictly greater than 0. Then for any event E subset of omega with probability of E greater than 0, we have the following. Okay, so it's simply what is there is this happening is using conditional probability concept as well as theorem of total probability. How? So it's very simple. So probability of I'm interested in EJ when E has occurred. So if you write down in terms of conditional probability, that is equals to probability of EJ and E occurred together divided by probability of E. Now this is equals to, now probability of EJ and E occurred together. So that also you can write as probability of probability of EJ into probability of E given EJ. When EJ has occurred, what is the probability in this case? Divided by probability of E. Now you apply the theorem of total probability that will give you summation I equals to 1 to infinity. Probability of E given EI time probability of EI. So this will give you the result here. So now let's try to answer now. So this already known that we have already found this question is same here. Okay, then a ball is drawn at random from the selected arm. Given that the drawn ball is white, so probability of A is known to you, means probability of A is given that the drawn ball is white, that we have already calculated 8 by 50. Okay, right. Find the conditional probability that it came from on U1. Means I am interested in probability of E1 given A has occurred. So if I apply the conditional probability concept, that's going to be probability of E1 and A divided by probability of A. So I do already have this probability here, already I have derived, so I'm not writing in terms of previous result. Okay, and what is the probability of E1 and A occurred is, again I will apply the concept of conditional probability, that is going to be probability of A given E1 into probability of E1 divided by probability of A. Means what is your job is here is you are transforming now unknown things in the known things. So because this E1 given A you don't know, you know A given E1 and probability of E1. Both things, all things are known to you on the right side. Okay, and then you fix all the constants and then you will get the answer. So this will give you probability of E1 given A selecting on U1 when that it came from on U1 when the drawn ball is white, that's equals to, so probability of selecting on E1 U1 is 1 by 3 into the drawn ball is white from the selected urn was 4 by 10 divided by 8 by 15. Okay, and that if you solve, that's going to be 4 by 16, so that is going to be 1 by 4. So similarly, you can apply the Bayes theorem for, given that the drawn ball is white, find the conditional probability that it came from on U2. So you are interested in probability of E2 given A, write the things in the known things, and then you are here 2 by 3 into 6 by 10 divided by 8 by 50. That will give you 3 by 4. Okay, right. So that's a very this is one example. So at a certain stage of a criminal investigation, the inspector in charge is 60% convinced of the guilt of a certain suspect. Okay, suppose now a new piece of evidence that shows that the criminal has a certain characteristic is uncovered. Okay, then if 20% of the population possesses this characteristic, how certain of the guilt of the suspect should the inspector now be if it turn out that the suspect is among this group? Okay, so that how will you answer it? So if you denote the G, so let's say G is the event that the suspect is guilty. So you have the suspect, the inspector investigating the criminal case, and let's say G is the event that the suspect is guilty. And give him. And let's say C is the event that he possesses, the suspect, okay, possesses the characteristic of the criminal. So characteristic may be anything, means like it may be fingerprint, or it may be means like he means working with the left-handed or something. Okay, okay, something new has been discovered, characteristic of the criminal. So what I'm interested is that probability of the suspect is guilty when it is known that he possesses the characteristics of the criminal. So this here you have to apply the Bayes theorem. Okay, and if you write down, this is going to be probability of G and C both, and divide by probability of C. Now the suspect is guilty as well as he possesses the characteristic of the criminal. Okay, so that's how it means. See, if he is guilty, so he is guilty with the probability 0.6 because 60% chance. Okay, if he is guilty, then probability of that he possesses the characteristic of the criminal is 1. Right? Okay, because if he is guilty, it is certain. Okay, right. So 0.6 into 1 divide by. So probability of C, so he possesses the characteristic of the criminal. So there are two possibilities, either he is guilty or he may not be guilty. Okay, so there are two cases. So C given, so if you apply the total probability is probability of G plus probability of C given G into complement into probability of G complement, means not guilty, but he possesses the characteristic of the criminal. Okay, so that is given to you. So probability of C is he possesses the characteristic of the criminal when it is given that the suspect is guilty is 1. Probability of G is 0.6 because the suspect is guilty with 60% chances. Okay, and then you have this is here probability of non-guilty is 0.4. Okay, so right, because 0.6 is the probability of being guilty and probability of non being guilty is 0.41 minus that. And probability that he possesses the characteristic of the criminal, in that case he is not guilty, is 0.2 because 20% he says that 20% of the population possesses this characteristic. So that the probability is 0.2 here. Okay, so that's going to be 0.6 divided by 0.6 plus 0.2 into 0.4. So that's going to be 60 by 68 and that's going to be 15 by 70. This probability is 15 by 7. So here you applied the Bayes theorem. So let omega and p be a probability space and you have two events. The events A and B are said to be negatively associated, positively associated and independent. So you are trying to identify the relation between probability of happening two events together and their individual probability product. Okay, so there are three cases, either it is less than, greater than or equal to. Okay, there are only three cases because these are numbers. Okay, so only three possible cases. So if probability of A and B is happening together is less than probability of A into probability of B, that we say that these two events are negatively associated. Okay, and if these opposite greater than, we will say that these are positively associated. If they are equal, they are independent. Okay, there is no relation you can say between them. Okay, right. So means probability independent means here what it shows you, this result. If you have this result means what it will give you, probability of A given B is probability of A itself. And probability of B given A is probability of B itself. Means it does not matter whether B has occurred or not. The probability of A in that scenario will remain the same. So they are independent. So if they are, I mean, if this probability of A and B is less than probability of A into probability of B, I still find out the relation. Okay, probability of B is greater than 0. So probability of A given B is less than probability of A, means negatively associated. Okay, probability of A given B is greater than probability of A. Okay, that means positively associated and so on. Okay, means large and or less. Okay, means like you can relate it why it is called negatively or positively. Okay, right. Okay, now just I will finish with some example. So it's very simple. Two fair dice are thrown. Even is the event that sum of the dice is 7. So this will be, I think this can be related 1, 6, 6, 1, 2, 5, 5, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3. They are the possible cases. So probability of even is certainly, if they are equally likely, we are assuming that's going to be 6 by 36. So that is going to be 1 by 6. E2 is the event that first die equals 4. So it's very simple to get probability of E2 is 1 by 6. Probability of E3 is the second die equal 3. So there are 6 many cases of 6 by 36. That's again 1 by 6. So you can show that probability of E1 or EI and EJ is equals to probability of EI into probability of EJ. For any two of pair, we can take I is equals to 1, 2, 3. J is also equals to 1, 2, 3. I not equals to J. Means they are independent of themselves. Now, not that they are not mutually exclusive. So mutually exclusive events is directly related with the set theory, and independence of the event is related with the probability. So that's a very major difference between independence of two events and mutually exclusive events. You can show that E1 is not independent with E1 intersection E2, or E2 is also not independent with E1 and E2. Whether these two events are independent or not, that you can show by just proving the result that probability of E1 and E2 is equal to probability of E1 into probability of E2 or not. If it is not equal, not independent. If they are equal, they are independent. So you can generalize this to any finitely many number of events now. So 3 events, 4 events, 5 events, and so on.